The 109 story began in 1933, when the German Air Ministry announced a competition to find a new frontline aircraft to replace its existing biplane fighter, the Heinkel HE-51. The tactical requirements of the RLM specified a single-engined, single-seat pursuit fighter, to be developed and made ready for evaluation by the end of 1935. The new machine was to carry 2 fixed machine guns and be capable of speeds up to 400 kilometers per hour. Development contracts were placed with 4 of Germany's leading manufacturers: Arado, Heinkel, Focke-Wulf and Bayerisch Flugzeugwerke. Each produced its own design, and after a series of evaluation trials, Willy Messerschmitt's Bf 109 was chosen to become Germany's standard frontline fighter. Meanwhile, 2 new British aircraft had made their maiden flights in England, the Supermarine Spitfire and the Hawker Hurricane. Since both fighters were armed with 8 Browning machine guns, the RLM decided to increase the armament of the 109. A third weapon, firing through the propeller hub, supplemented the existing pair of nose-mounted machine guns. In December 1936, the first batch of 109s were sent to Spain, where they were tested in combat by the Luftwaffe's Condor Legion. They were an instant success, and during the first 2 months of fighting, they proved far superior to any other aircraft in the Spanish Civil War. Made up of volunteer pilots, the Condor Legion fought on the side of Franco's nationalist forces. Back in Germany, the first available 109s were delivered to the 1st and 2nd groups of the Richthofen fighter wing. As the 109 pilots gained experience, they began to develop a new and more effective fighter tactic known as the Schwarm. 4 aircraft flying together in loose formation were far less vulnerable to attack than the more traditional methods of grouping. Using a pattern resembling the fingers of an outstretched hand, each fighter in the Schwarm was protected by the one behind, and all 4 machines had maximum visibility. 109 production expanded dramatically, and by the end of July, 6 more fighter groups had re-equipped. In October, the first really prolific variant made its appearance, the Daimler-Benz-powered Bf 109E. Known as the Emil, it had a maximum speed of 570 kilometers per hour. It was armed with either 2 machine guns and 2 cannons, or 4 machine guns and 1 cannon. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, and 200 109s spearheaded the attack. The Polish Air Force was hopelessly outclassed, and within a month of the invasion, it had lost more than 200 frontline aircraft. By the end of June, the RAF had lost over 500 fighters. France had surrendered, and Germany was in complete control of the skies over Western Europe. While the Luftwaffe regrouped for the invasion of Britain, a number of improvements were made to the Me-109E. Wing-mounted machine guns were abandoned in favor of the MGFF cannon, and power output was increased by using the new Daimler-Benz 601N engine. Armor plating was added to both the pilot's seat and to the canopy area immediately behind his head. In an effort to increase the operational range, provision was made for 300-litre drop tanks to be carried externally. Using a fuselage-mounted rack, fighter bomber versions were adapted to take either 4 50-kilogram bombs or a single 250-kilogram bomb. The 109E compared well with the contemporary Spitfire. As the war spread to Africa and the Middle East, the 109 was specially adapted in order to cope with the predominantly dusty conditions. To minimize engine damage, a sand filter was fitted over the supercharger air intake, and the resulting tropicalized version was designated as the Bf 109 Trop. In June 1941, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of Russia. The opening attack was supported by 450 Bf 109s. While a third of these aircraft were E variants, the rest of the force was made up of the latest 109 model, the Friedrich. The F incorporated a number of improvements, many of which resulted from the experiences gained in the Battle of Britain. An enlarged propeller spinner and redesigned engine cowling reduced air drag and gave the machine a much more streamlined look. Rounded wingtips and the removal of the tailplane support struts gave it better performance and a higher service ceiling than the Emil. During the first 2 days of Operation Barbarossa, the Luftwaffe's 109Es and Fs shot down more than 300 Russian aircraft. Hundreds more were destroyed on the ground in a series of well-timed attacks on Soviet airfields. By the end of the month, German pilots had claimed more than 4,000 Russian aircraft for the loss of only 150 of their own machines. To many of the Luftwaffe's experienced pilots, the F4 model was the ultimate 109 variant. The F variant served with almost every unit in the Jagdflieger and produced some of the highest scoring aces on both the eastern and western fronts. On September the 1st, 1942, while on an escort mission in Africa, Hans-Joachim Marseille set a record in a 109F when he destroyed 18 British fighters in a single day. During the whole of the month, he shot down a total of 62 machines, and by the time of his death on September the 30th, his personal score stood at 158 British aircraft. But even this number seemed relatively small when compared with the tallies of Gerhard Barkhorn and Erich Hartmann. Serving with JG-52 on the Eastern Front, both men amassed more than 300 combat victories. They were the most successful aces of the war, and the only 2 pilots ever to shoot down more than 300 enemy aircraft. Hartmann was a strong advocate of tactics and became the highest-scoring fighter pilot in the history of aviation. He followed the well-tried methods of many First World War aces. Hartmann's experience as a fighter pilot spanned 3 whole decades. In World War II, he flew over 1,400 missions and had combat in more than half of them. He shot down 352 enemy aircraft, all on the Eastern Front, and all while flying the Me-109. The secret of his success lay in always maneuvering to gain the advantage.